This just in, Don Shula, the winningest coach in NFL history, died today at the age of 90. The Dolphins announced Shula died peacefully at his home. Marcus Spears is still here with us. Max, I'll start with you here. What's your reaction to Shula's passing, and what's his legacy?
Well, it's never long enough, but passing at 90 is a nice long life. And in terms of his legacy as a football coach, he's easily one of the 5 greatest NFL head coaches of all time. You know, the list starts with Belichick, and before it was started with Belichick, it started with Lombardi, and otherwise Bill Walsh is in there, like in the top 3 or 4 somewhere. I would say top 3. And Shula is the other name that belongs in that category, or maybe right there next to it. And I don't know that there's anyone else that you can really mention with those guys. Shula's one of those guys. You know, you coach Johnny Unitas and Dan Marino. And by the way, neither one of those guys was your quarterback when you went undefeated, the only undefeated team in history. He's one of the, when you say like one of the all-time greats or Hall of Famers, but then you say, you know, because inevitably the Hall of Fame, the standards, people question, well, if this guy's in, then this guy should be in. And eventually you have some guys who are bubble Hall of Famers or solidly Hall of Famers, but it doesn't really express what the Michael Jordans or Babe Ruths are, right? Like, how do we talk? And so people say there should be kind of an inner circle in an inner sanctum of the Hall of Fame for only the best among the Hall of Famers. That's what Don Shula is among NFL coaches. He belongs in the Hall of Fame of the Hall of Fame coaches.
Yeah, Max, I like that you said that. Here's the thing. I'm not going to pretend that I have personal anecdotal tales about Don Shula, but what I do know is meeting him one time, he was an encyclopedia of the game of football. I think his legacy is obviously going to be being perfect in an NFL football season when it comes to how he did his job, longevity. The hardest thing in the NFL is staying power. And for him to do it for 33 years and win as much as he did, that comes with the ability to not only connect with players beyond playing the game, but it also comes with being able to evolve with what the game was becoming. Max just mentioned it, going from Johnny U to Dan Marino is a big jump in how the league changed and evolved during that time. So I think Don Shula deserves a lot of credit for not only being a great coach, but one of the pillars of the NFL and one of those guys where you really span out and look over his coaching tree, you'll really understand the influence he's had on what the NFL is today, and let alone that, the game of football. So it's a huge loss for the NFL community, but I agree with Max. 90 years and as much success and things that he's been able to see and actually get his roses while he was still living for the work that he did and put in throughout the NFL in terms of what he was able to accomplish, but also how he impacted the lives of players and people around the game is not enough to be said. You only get a few of these too, by the way. Like, you only get a few guys like Don Shula. I know we cover sports, and I know a lot of people we talk to live and are around the game of football, basketball, whatever the professional sport that we talk about. So we kind of take it for granted. But the fact that Don Shula was able to do his job at this high of a level for this period of time, it's different. It's special. So I think that'll be a big part of his legacy when you talk about it from a football terms. But obviously, the perfect season and winning the Super Bowl is what comes to the forefront of most football people's mind.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because the 72 Dolphins, a lot of times there's like a little backlash against it, because anytime there was an undefeated team, they would interview guys from the 72 Dolphins like, oh, we would have beaten that team. Of course you wouldn't have, because the guys are so much bigger, stronger, and faster now. But better and greater, as I often say, are two different things. You know, if you took the top 10 sprinters in the world today, they'd all dust Jesse Owens, right? Because we can time it and see. But who were as great? Who dominated their contemporaries the way Jesse Owens did? So let's leave who's the best out of it for a second and just talk about the greatest teams of all time. Boy, the 72 Dolphins who Don Shula coached, and it wasn't like, oh, well, Shula happened to have a great team because he's the winning, he won so many games, he got to 6 Super Bowls, he won 2 Super Bowls, has so many AFC championships with all those things, so it's not coincidental that he was the head coach of the only undefeated season in history. As you said, that'd be his legacy, where there's a really good argument. They also, they blanked Washington in the Super Bowl, 17-0. So when the Patriots were about to be crowned greatest team of all time, and a lot of people said they'd supplant the 85 Bears, or you might select another team. But there's a very good argument that, in fact, they would have supplanted the 72 Dolphins, Shula's team, as the greatest ever. Let's not forget that Patriots team lost the Super Bowl to the Giants, meaning that you could still argue the 72 Dolphins are the greatest team of all time, and Don Shula was their coach, and that wasn't an accident.
4 Coach of the Year awards, and it's absolutely unbelievable. 33 years as an NFL head coach and only 2 losing seasons. It's remarkable. Our heart goes out to his loved ones today. And again, Don Shula, the winningest coach in NFL history, has passed away at the age of 90.